Hey everyone, thank you for joining in here. I'm Jackson Blau, Head of Community Management here at Infineo, and I'm really excited for the conversation we're going to be having today with Realio Network. We're really excited to have Nicki Sanders, their CTO, here to help us kind of review the entire tokenized real estate revolution and what specifically is going on with Realio and how they're involved. And so, if you are in the audience and you have any questions about anything we're talking about here, please feel free to drop them under the pinned tweet, and we'll be sure to get those to the panelists. And with that, I'd love to give our speakers a chance to introduce themselves. Alec, would you like to kick it off?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. And Nicki, thank you so much for joining us. Super excited to get into it with you because, my background, actually, I come from the real estate side of tokenization, since moved into the life insurance side, but really do have a lot of appreciation for the real estate side. So I'm Infineo's Director of Digital Assets as well as Director of Business Development. So just super excited for this conversation.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alec. Noah, Dr. Murphy, Zuhar, would one of you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the chief economist here at Infineo. Very interested in the whole tokenization of real world assets. And I know real estate has been one of the pioneers in this area. So I'm just looking forward to this conversation as well. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Yeah, and hey guys, I'm CTO of Infineo, Suhair, and yeah, I mean this space is so exciting right now. There's so many developments going on, so I'm really looking forward to the conversation and hoping to learn something at the end.
And last but not least, from our Infineo team is Noah Pollock.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. I'm way back in the day, Alec and I used to work together, and I think he told me about the possibility of tokenizing real estate in 2016, 2017. So it's been on my mind since then. So I'm super excited to hear from some experts and learn something.
Beautiful. Me as well, Noah. And our woman of the hour, Nicki. It's great to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Jackson.
Thank you for being on. And for our listeners who may not be as familiar with you, do you want to give a quick intro for them?
Sure. Yeah, I am the CTO at Relio, where we are trying to tackle the whole world of real world asset tokenization, specifically focused on real estate assets. My background is in blockchain development. I've been in the space since 2015. And before that was a backend developer. So I have an engineering background, and then, slowly kind of was able to climb the ladder a little bit and get more onto the leadership side, but I still, get into the code. I'm a programmer at heart, and then I, just for the day job, do more of the official like strategy and people management things.
Well, it seems like you're doing a lot over at Relio and a lot of really exciting stuff. So we really thank you for being here. And with that, I think we're really ready to dive in here to our conversation. I know I've been looking at the real estate tokenization industry since probably 2021, and that's not that long. As we heard, our Director of Digital Assets here, Alec Beckman, has been looking at the space for a lot longer. And so this has been a space where there's been a lot of talk and a lot of hype for a while, but I believe we're really starting to see some great traction. Per Security Token Market's most recent monthly report, there's approximately 200 million already trading of real estate tokens on chain in the secondary market, which is really, really great. And that's not including all the billions that are in the primary issuance market right now. And that's where we see Relio getting involved. And so with that, Nicki, it'd be great if you could kind of walk us through a little bit deeper Relio's mission and kind of your journey into the real estate sector through blockchain.
Yeah. So, here at Relio, it's just all about leveraging blockchain to make investing, specifically real estate investing, more accessible. We're trying to build a digital platform where someone can create, manage, and then trade digital assets really easily and on chain. I'm really passionate about this. This is really how I got into the blockchain space, was on the security token side of things, where I was exposed very quickly to kind of the difficulties and the frictions in the current financial space, and the things that can happen when there's not a lot of visibility and auditability in securities trading. And the blockchain is a technology that can really mitigate a lot of those issues. And that's why I've kind of stuck around in the space and why I'm so passionate about it. And those are really the kinds of things that Relio is trying to take advantage of fixing those problems and making that just a lot easier for everyone to get involved in and to just kind of lower the fraud that can happen.
From our Infineo team, do you guys see anything going on specifically, like Nicki just mentioned there in the real estate industry or real estate tokenization industry?
Yeah, I can definitely chime in here. So it's been really interesting to see, and Nicki told me something that she's been in the space as long as I have. When we met at ETH Denver, and I think that back then it was really just a dream of taking real quality assets and being able to put them on chain and actually give them functionality. For me, it all started with a white paper about theoretically what you can do, doing things like improve liquidity, doing things like, improve distributions, improve, transparent data, improve the underwriting process of a piece of real estate. So, since that time, which for me, was pretty early, between 6, 8 years ago, I think a lot of infrastructure has been built thanks to people like Nicki. So, back when I was starting, a lot of people would approach and say, how do we get onto these secondary markets? How do we create, lending on chain and with these assets? And back then there was not a lot of infrastructure built. So it's really cool to see the development of a lot of different platforms that have come together, like Relio, like groups like T0, which I know Relio is working with as a secondary market trading partner. So it's just been really cool to see the developments, more assets being brought on chain, and more high quality assets being brought on chain, because I think at the end of the day, you need people who are bringing, class A properties, class A portfolios, who are willing to take a chance on using technology that can really just benefit them. So it's very exciting for us to see.
It is very exciting to see, Alec. And I'd say even with that, the technology itself has come a really long way. I mean, Relio is doing some really innovative things with the Cosmos SDK and with their Comet BFTs. And so we've got the perfect person here to dive in a little bit more into how Relio is providing some enhanced security and efficiencies for the real estate tokenization industry. So Nicki, if you want to hit on potentially that aspect, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we have our own blockchain, layer 1 blockchain, the Relio network. And I wasn't involved. I've been at Relio since November, so this came out before I was here, but the team has done incredible work on this. It's a really cool system. So it is built off the Cosmos SDK and using Comet BFT as our consensus mechanism. So it's a proof of stake blockchain. But then we've kind of changed it a little bit, whereas the traditional proof of stake blockchains, you're able to, bond or delegate the native coins on that network to participate in the staking and the security for that network. We are able to now do a more of a multi-staking situation where we can, through governance, the governance of the chain, it can be voted on to allow other tokens to be staked and be able to run validators by staking different assets on the blockchain. So right now we can do that with the Rio, the native Rio token, but also with our RST, that's our Relio security token. And now we have just upgraded the network. So new tokens can be voted on to be added to be able to stake on the platform, which we just found to be a really cool thing to give more value and more point to issuing tokenized real estate assets. There's just more things you can do with the token once you own it. It gives people more of a purpose to buy it on a tokenized platform rather than through, more traditional means that once you own it, there's not much you can do with it. Here, you can take that tokenized asset and then actually do something with it. So that's where we're really focused now. I mean, the first step is obviously getting these tokenized assets on chain. That's a huge leap. But then we see the second layer of this technology where it becomes even more interesting is, okay, someone owns a tokenized asset. What can they do with it next? Can they like lend out, like take out loans against it as collateral? Can they stake it on a platform to get Rio rewards? Things like that.
I mean, it's all super, super exciting. And I know I've been watching the RST token specifically and RIO for a little bit. And it's been really interesting to watch how Relio has taken this dual token system approach. I'd love for Nicki, if you could explain a little bit of what the differences between the RIO and RST tokens are. I know they're very different. And it kind of just explain their roles and functionalities in the Relio ecosystem and how they each contribute to the network in a different way.
Yeah, so Rio is the native coin on our Relio network. So as there's Ether on Ethereum, like it pays the gas fees for the network. And then when you stake, like run a validator and stake on the network, those are the rewards that you're going to get. So that's all that it is to Rio. Like I know that there's a lot of community that are huge fans of Rio, which we love. And there are bridges where you can take it to other networks like Algorand, Stellar, things like that. But really, the importance of it in the Relio ecosystem is it's the underlying gas asset for the Relio network chain. Then the RST token is a security token for Relio. So that's a little bit different where you, instead of just, so it's not a native coin on the network, it's a ERC 1404, I believe. So it is a security token where you must be whitelisted, you have to be accredited to hold it. We're just going by the current rules in the US. There's all the hoops you have to jump through if something is a security, where for us, we're just fully admitting, yeah, this is a private security. We're going to follow all the rules. So you have to jump through some hoops to own it, but it does, give you just kind of, it's more of a security instead of just the native asset. And now it actually has the utility of being able to be stakeable on the Relio network. So it kind of has a little bit more of an extra utility than your run-of-the-mill security token.
That's an awesome point, Nicki. And I want to get into that a little bit about the difference between, securities and all the different hoops you have to jump through. And I think it's an important note right now that just because we are tokenizing something and just because we're putting it on a blockchain does not abstract it from all the securities laws that exist. Right. So, I would love to know, some of the steps that Relio has taken, to make sure that, like you said, wallets are whitelisted with good actors, being able to follow KYC AML laws, some of the accreditation around it, and then additionally, just some of the steps that real estate issuers have to actually take to legally issue, securities and just a representation of equity in a real estate property.
Yeah, those are really good questions. So at this point, we obviously we don't want to get into a battle with the SEC. Those don't sound like fun. So we're just fully admitting that these are securities, like tokenized real estate assets in the eyes of the United States legal system are securities. So to participate in those, you have to go through, some hoops. You have to go through KYC, which is know your customer. So we have to know who you are. You have to be a known actor. You can't do this anonymously. And then for most of these assets, you have to be an accredited investor, which, oh wow, man, I think they just changed the rules, but it's like you have to make a certain amount of money per year, or you have to have so much in assets, not including your primary residence. So those are the hoops that you have to jump through to get whitelisted. So that's kind of a bummer. Like I'm a huge advocate for democratizing capital. But I think that it's a step, right? Right now, like the thing I always try to remind people is these assets, they exist now. People buy fractionalized real estate assets. People, they invest in real estate now. It's just not very easy to do. Like there's not just, you can't hop on Fidelity and really easily do this. But people with higher net worths that have financial help and have like family offices managing their assets, they participate in these sorts of investments. And really what we're trying to do is just make it more visible and make it easier and just bring it to the masses, even if you do have to be accredited. That is not an insanely high bar to entry. Especially if you are in the tech space, the income limits are, I mean, they're high, but they're not so high that, more people can't participate, that maybe you aren't rich enough to, have a family office managing your finances, but you could make enough money to be an accredited investor. And I just don't think there's enough education around that, where people don't even realize that they have access to these sorts of investments. And that's something we're trying to change.
Yeah, and I think also, some of the recent developments and the changes of exemptions, like you have more prominent what are called Reg A pluses nowadays, which you can kind of think as a mini IPO, which are accessible to non-accredited investors. And then you have Reg CF, which there's a limit of $5 million being able to be raised, but it does also allow for non-accredited investors to be in there. Is Relio working with any of these types of assets that are open to non-accredited investors? And if not, is there a plan to really, get into that space?
Yeah, we're definitely open to all of that. We know that it's kind of an easier leap to get into like a Reg D or something like that, where there are, those issuance limits and the small cap table limits. And then the accredited investor requirement. But yeah, there's a bunch of ways that we can get around this. And then if you're doing issuances in different domiciles, there's some things that we can do as well.
So I know we just started to get into it a little bit there, Nicki, but it'd be great if we could talk more specifically about how bringing these fractional real estate investments on chain is going to benefit these family office type players, and how platforms like Relio are really at the forefront of this. I mean, like you said, you can't just go on Fidelity and trade fractional real estate. You either have to have a financial planner in the know, or know people that are investing in real estate and get in on those deals. So how would you say that this is adding an efficiency layer?
I think by letting more people into the financial system, that it's a net positive. So I don't think everyone's going to think this is great. People who benefit from the high barriers to entry might not love the easier access, but I think I'm okay with that. I think that the more people that we can let into our financial system and can take advantage of these sorts of investments is a net positive. So, and just where it makes sense on the tokenization side is, it can all happen on paper where you own a fractionalized piece of real estate, but then what? That's where, again, I kind of mentioned this before, where that's where it can get cool, is once you own this asset, it's on chain, you can prove you own it. What can you do with it? And that's where I think that the world of possibilities really opens up.
Potentially to add some color there, Dr. Murphy or Zuhar, do you guys want to speak to kind of what we're doing at Infineo with real world assets and kind of the benefits we see to bringing them on chain beyond just having a digital representation of it?
Yeah, sure. I can chime in there. So I think what's interesting is there is sort of a higher level archetype that I think applies across the board to all digitization of real world asset initiatives. And I think the implementation details are what differentiates one sort of initiative from another. But what ultimately what it is you're taking a real world asset, you're creating a digital representation of it, and then by doing that, you're enabling a ton of efficiencies by reducing friction here, by increasing accessibility there. And so there's all these different things that are enabled as a result of that. And so at Infineo, what we're doing is we're specifically focused on digitizing life insurance, and life insurance as an asset class, which is something that some may not understand it as, but really it's a great warehouse of capital and specifically permanent life insurance, and it's a great asset. And there's no secondary market, so we're in the process of creating one. And all of this comes on the back of digitization and creating really backed NFTs out of real world assets. So it's really great to hear. I guess we're one part of a larger initiative to digitize and tokenize real world assets, and it's great to hear the other sides as well.
Yeah, I could jump in fast too here. Again, this is Bob Murphy, the economist, speaking. That in terms of what we're doing, as Zuhar said, that there's a growing recognition in certain circles that certain types of whole life insurance policies aren't good merely for the death benefit coverage, in case somebody dies and you need to be made whole, but as cash management vehicles. But then there's a lot of frictions right now. So just real quickly, if you want to just from scratch go take out a policy of this nature, you first of all have to prove you have an insurable interest, and whoever the underlying insured party is, you might hit limits if you have too many outstanding insurance policies where the underwriters just aren't going to grant you more life insurance. It's hard to transfer them. In Canada, it's like almost literally illegal unless you give it to somebody else who's got insurable interest. In the US, you can do it, but it's very cumbersome. You got to go through licensed brokers and everything. So it's not like right now it's easy to go up to a fund manager and say, hey, why don't you reduce your exposure to treasuries and put 1% of your portfolio in whole life insurance policies. Oh, another friction is it takes a while for them to really get going to get a decent rate of return on them. That up front, there's a lot of fixed costs where you're sinking premiums in, and it's only down the road that the value pops above your cost basis. So for all those reasons, if there existed a robust secondary market where people could move in and out of these things as an asset class, that would be wonderful. And that's what we're trying to create. And we just realize a technical way to ease that is through tokenization. That theoretically you could do all this with just conventional, paper shuffling around, but it's just going to be so much smoother via tokenization.
So I'd like to bring it back to real estate for a second. But when I think about some of the benefits of tokenizing real estate, I think of a couple that really come to mind. So first is like actual investor onboarding. I mean this through a process standpoint, but also through actually being able to find investor standpoint. The way that people raise capital for real estate today is a lot of people go to existing networks that they have, or they go on road shows of places that they can find through their processes. There's not a great way, besides a few platforms, some in the tokenization space, some outside of the tokenization space, where people can actually go and find investors, whether it's throughout the US or even globally. So I think it's really important to digitize the ability to go out and find investors, which can lead to more successful capital raises, which is a big problem a lot of the time, especially if you're just getting started in real estate and don't have that existing network. From a process standpoint, it's very back and forth, very on paper, and very, there's nothing that's automated within the process. So to have like a linear investor onboarding process where you can go on and actually read through the materials, determine whether you want to make an investment, and on the same exact place, go through the compliance measures that you have to go through, fund your or sign your documents for actually wanting to be a part of the investment, as well as then funding the investment. Like that is something that can be improved immediately through tokenization. And so that just really improves the actual investor onboarding process, which makes it so much easier for issuers because this is such a costly and timely process today. There's a lot of lawyers involved. It's very manual. There's a lot of back and forth. So that's an immediate problem that we can solve. On the back end, the ability to share information instantaneously with your investors, give them a place to log in, give them a place to look at the investment, provide them with updates, besides, whatever quarterly reports that they may give, which is actually pretty rare when it comes to private real estate. But then not only being able to provide information, but also being able to potentially provide some form of liquidity where, whether it's lending or whether it's going to a secondary market theoretically, which I know we'll talk about the challenges of adoption later. And I definitely have a lot to say about the liquidity side. But these are all real benefits that don't exist today. If I'm a limited partner or somebody that just puts up capital in a real estate investment, my forms of liquidity today are really reliant upon if there's redemption opportunities that come from the general partner or managing party of the asset, or if I wanted to go out and find a private buyer and then go through all those manual processes of investor onboarding. Again, not only that, but then you have to get approval from the general partner. There's so many hoops that people have to jump through. So even if there are little ways that we can add liquidity benefits to these limited partners, that is such a huge win for the private real estate market, which is, trillions of dollars within the US, and, not to mention the amount of money that is globally owned in private real estate. So,
Alec, those were such good points. I just wanted to add a little bit to it. That was so amazing. As you were mentioning the cross-border issue and like international investors, something that we found here at Relio where, the blockchain technology can really smooth things out is cross-border payments. So that's something that's brought up a lot as a benefit of cryptocurrency. But then when you can bring it into the real world asset tokenization space as well, where you can do cross-border investments without having to deal with the banking system, which is just another huge barrier to entry. If you can, just pay using crypto, smooths things out incredibly. And then I loved all of the things you were saying about like the liquidity with the secondary markets. There can be rules with these private with these private assets where, you can't have just a secondary market. There's all, the licensing where, you have to meet these requirements if you want to be an exchange or if you want to be an ATS, and they're all the rules that are involved. But at the easiest level, it's a peer-to-peer transaction, right? For trading private equity, you can do it if it's a peer-to-peer transaction, but then, you have to still jump through all the hoops of getting the other investor completely onboarded. That's something that smart contracts really can take care of, where it's easy to find another peer to trade with, and we can facilitate that completely with smart contracts. So the two people, they don't have to really go out of their way to do anything extra, and there's no ownership, like sticking points, because we can just do an atomic swap on chain. That's where I think the technology can really shine.
Zuhar, Dr. Murphy, Noah, anything to add there? And so with that, we've been getting a lot of questions from the Relio community, and they're really excited about the Relio roadmap that is currently published. And in Q2, it does mention a new real estate tokenization investment opportunity, Nicki. And so people in the comments are potentially looking for an update on that project. Any potential insights you can give, maybe some secret sauce.
Yeah, so our updated quarterly deck should be out here soon. I think we were just wrapping it up. So we did have a great Q1. I was really excited that we were able to hit pretty much everything that we set out to do. And Q2 is looking to be just as successful. As far as the new real estate investment opportunities, I can't really say anything about it. Things, all the legal things are still in flight, but they are being worked on, and I am very excited.
Well, we're very excited too for all the reasons that we've stated on this space. And so with that, it'd be really good to, I guess, potentially talk about the challenges of how hard it's been for Relio to get here. Not how hard. I mean, you guys have done an amazing job and have been at the forefront of the industry for a while now. But what are the challenges you've seen other people in the industry face? What are the challenges you've ran into with building out the infrastructure to actually tokenize real estate? I know we've talked about the jumping through hoops, but anything more specific would be great.
Yeah, it really has been around for, I think, around 2018. And I think one of the biggest challenges has been just waiting for the rest of the market to catch up. This obviously is a great use of the technology. This is a great way to to do for like fractionalized real estate investment is with a tokenized on-chain system. We just have to, like, you have to get everyone on board, right? It's a two-sided market. You have to bring in the issuers and you need to bring in the investors. So that's just kind of a slow process. I feel like with the real, like RWAs being in headlines and being such a hot topic right now, that's super helpful. And I think now the traction is really starting to grow, which is awesome. I'm really glad that we've had all of this time to get ready and get our platform ready. We now just quickly have to scale and make sure that we can handle the influx of new investors and new issuers.
Perfect. Alec, with your experience in real estate tokenization, are there any other challenges that you or Nicki haven't addressed yet that you'd like to talk about with the real estate tokenization industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. When people think real estate tokenization, a lot of people think immediately about liquidity, and when they think liquidity, they think trading immediately. There is a couple issues that I really see with the trading side, specifically on the secondary market of equity in real estate assets. The first is investors. To get investors comfortable with holding digital tokens is something that's going to be really tough, because real estate investors are very traditionally, very comfortable with the way that things are. What I mean by that is, these are people who have been buying, or purchasing equity the same way, where it's worked for them, because real estate, there's a ton of money in it, and people get distributions, and people continue to invest through the people that are doing well for them. So from the investor side, it's very difficult to convince people that through this scary, and when I say that, I do it with air quotes, with this scary thing called blockchain, and be comfortable wanting to trust something that is built on chain, even though as many blockchain people know, it's just a database that holds uncorruptible information. So I think a lot of people just get scared off without taking the time to learn about it, and also people have never bought through a platform, so a lot of people do feel uncomfortable trying to be brought into this new space. I think the other big issue that I see with liquidity, especially on the trading side, is the way that real estate people handle their data. There is this fundamental within real estate that you don't share information, and you keep your information as tight as possible. And what I mean by that are real things, real tangible things like rent roll. So that's the example I always give. How much are your tenants as a real estate owner paying? And there's a reason that these people don't make that information public. You make that information public, and your neighbor who's next door sees what you're charging. They lower their rent very slightly to what you're charging, and then they try and steal your tenant. So this is a thing in real estate that very traditional general partners and managing partners are super wary of. And as private assets, they're not required to disclose this information to the public, unlike public assets. So really, there has to be a fundamental change in the comfort level of disclosing information from real estate owners. And that's going to take some time and some convincing. So really what it's going to take is it's going to be a very, very slow transition of people who are willing to provide enough information to create trading on their markets. And then eventually the floodgates may open. But it's really, really tough to convince these people to give enough information so that an investor can make an informed decision, because these are complicated assets. This is not like, every asset is pretty complicated, but I would use a public asset like Apple, okay, where everyone knows Apple. So many people have iPhones, people have, MacBooks, whatever they have. They use these products every day. They see the commercials. They know how the stock has performed in the past. It's easier to make a decision on that. For real estate, there's a lot more that goes into it, and there's a lot more things that you have to read about to make an informed decision. So there's going to have to be some sort of transition to where other people or people who have been traditionally in real estate want to change the way that real estate is transacted. There's a lot of people that have said they're willing, but when it comes to it, they're not as willing. There's a few really great assets that trade right now. And you look at something like the spot at Myra Park, which is listed on T0, and you look at how that's trading, and what they're doing is they had a private raise, but they're providing a lot of information. They're being and they're disclosing, a lot of things that they do not have to. So there's going to have to be more people like that to actually create this liquidity. But before then, we do have a really great liquidity opportunity, which is lending on chain. People can get now instantaneous loans by collateralizing their equity. This is something that would change the game for real estate and give and really provide an excellent liquidity opportunity that doesn't exist today. So I'm very excited by that. I think that's a much more immediate benefit than trading in the future. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Alec, I actually have a follow-up question for you, based off what you were just saying. If we have been seeing this more slow adoption by traditional real estate investors, with how plugged into the industry you are and how involved you've been with real estate tokenization, who would you say are the investors in these real estate tokenization deals right now? Because there are still active tokens trading on the secondary marketplace, hundreds of thousands of dollars of volume each month. Who do you think it is that is getting involved with these deals right now? And anyone could add to this after. I just wanted to get Alec's opinion.
Yeah, it's a great question. I do not know exactly who these people are. I can take a very educated guess that it's a niche group of people who are qualified to make decisions on these assets and are also comfortable with technology shifts. There are those people that exist in the real estate world as well, in the investment world. So, I give massive amounts of applause to groups like Relio, to groups like the ATSs that are on chain, that are bringing in investors and convincing them to make it happen. I do think a lot of them are probably accredited. I think some of them are even as far as qualified purchasers, which is even a higher level of accreditation. Qualified purchasers, you think of the BlackRock tokenized fund deal, they're all qualified purchasers. So right now, I do think it's a highly sophisticated, niche investor, and I'm hoping that where the tokenization experience goes is almost abstracting the blockchain side of it. People don't need to know that they're using blockchain. We know that blockchain provides a lot of value and can, allow for transferability, can allow for, data transparency, all the, data credentials that are able to be carried across different assets. So there's a lot of good that people can do, but people don't want to download a wallet, and people don't want to change their experience all too much. They want buttons that say invest here, qualify here, do certain things like that to really, get going. So I think right now, I think the platforms have done a good job of kind of abstracting that. But I think there will be a lot more investors that can come into the fold when the experience is fully almost abstracted from blockchain and using a MetaMask wallet or using your Coinbase wallet.
Alec, that's so true. That's something that we're taking really seriously here, where we kind of realize there's really different types of investors on our platform. There's going to be the really crypto savvy investors who are excited about the blockchain technology, that understand what's going on. But guess what? Those are not going to be most of the investors. Most real estate investors, they don't know about the technology. In fact, they probably don't want to know. It's complicated, and it can sound a little scary. And then you start Googling things, and all of these headlines come up with crypto scams and fraud. It's kind of nicer to be able to separate ourselves from that and make this a smooth experience where anyone can participate, and they don't need to know that it's blockchain underneath, but we can know, and then the regulators can know that this cannot be faked, and that this is real, and that there's true ownership involved, and that these trades are happening with smart contracts that you can see. And that's where really the value comes.
100% agree, Nicki. And thank you for adding that, Alec. And on that note, I mean, I signed up for the Relio platform the other day, and I was super impressed by the UI, UX. It was a great user experience, and you guys, it seems, take it very seriously, kind of abstracting and making it usable by anyone. But I'm just curious, Nicki, have there been any sort of design decisions specifically or features you've built out specifically to make it easier for people that may not be crypto native on the Relio platform?
Yeah, so we're planning on having a whole new investment platform launched in Q3. Those designs are well underway right now. And that's top of mind as we're designing this, of having the mindset of an investor coming on that is not a crypto person, is not crypto native, doesn't have a wallet, doesn't know what that means, and frankly, like doesn't want to know what that means. That's really top of mind for us.
100%. Zuhar, do you want to potentially add how we at Infineo also take it very seriously? And we've explored different ways to make it easier for people to access our solutions?
Yeah, for sure. So, in anything we do, we realize that it's sort of like the blockchain, the way I see it, our AI and blockchain technologies are black boxes for process optimizations and to create more efficiency. And it doesn't matter what technology you use, if you make things faster, cheaper, easier, and better while you're creating value, and then the company captures some of that value goes to the end user, and everyone's happy. And so the way that I see this happening is that there's sort of two types of blockchain companies. There is the type that is a blockchain company for the sake of calling themselves a blockchain company, and they use the blockchain in a way that it's not necessarily adding too much efficiency, but it does give them some sort of a PR boost. And then there's another type of blockchain company that actually uses it for their back office work and for the logistical benefits it provides. And that is oftentimes, in reality, should not be visible to the user. And it's just efficiencies in the back end where you're disintermediating a bunch of intermediaries that exist in between you and the end result. And when you're doing that, I mean, ideally, the user doesn't need to deal with that. And so we take that philosophy, and there's a lot of efficiencies to be added in real world asset tokenization, and most of the time the user doesn't need to deal with the complexities of it. And so it's great that we're on the same page as builders in the space. And I think that the RWA space is one of the only spaces within the ecosystem that is really taking that seriously. And I think there's a great future to come for that reason, because from an adoption perspective.
I completely agree, Zuhar. Thank you for adding that color there. And so I think we can move on to our next topic here. Nicki, I'd love to hear a little bit about how Relio is interoperable. We heard earlier about how Relio actually has its own chain on the Cosmos SDK system. But it would be great to kind of just hear about the EVM compatibility and just the overall interoperability of everything that you guys are building.
Yeah, so Eduardo was on the call, so he would probably be able to speak better to this than I can. But when they were building this, they used this module that you can do when you're building a Cosmos SDK fork chain called Evmos. So that gives us the ability to have EVM compatibility on our Relio network chain. So what that means is we can write Solidity smart contracts and deploy those onto our chain. So then those same contracts can be deployed on any EVM compatible chain, which is really nice. And then we can have bridges, that move assets between chains.
Thank you for that. And we actually had an audience question asking if you could potentially give an update on the ETH bridge, any sort of announcement about when they can expect to see that live.
Oh, I even talked to our CEO about this morning. No, that's still being worked on. There were a few little technical difficulties that came with the ETH bridge and the way things that were done. I think as the technology improves, we know better and we can do better. So we're going to work on getting that fixed.
No worries. I'm sure it'll be up soon and it'll be fantastic. I just wanted to address their question and thank you for the honesty.
Of course.
And so with that, how do you guys at Relio really see yourselves impacting the broader DeFi ecosystem? I mean, we've talked about how a lot of these tokens, when we talk about liquidity, it doesn't necessarily mean trading. And so if you could talk about any sort of benefits you see in the broader DeFi ecosystem, potentially even talking about lending as it pertains to the tokenized real estate industry. That would be great, Nicki.
Yeah, and I could see Relio and just tokenized real estate assets in general just being a great entry point to some people getting into the system. We talk about, I mean, I feel on crypto Twitter, people are always talking about, adoption and how do we reach mass adoption. And really, in my opinion, there's only so much we can do when we're talking just about the technology and getting people on like Sushi Swap and Uniswap and doing on-chain trades with their wallets and getting really technical. Really, I feel like we need the killer apps, and that's where blockchain adoption really takes off. The internet was a thing long before email came along, but email was really what made the internet take off as something that's involved in our daily lives. And obviously, it's just been built upon since then. So if real estate tokenization or just RWA tokenization in general is an entry point to people getting on board, I see that as a positive thing. And then, as you were kind of saying, once people own assets on chain, what's next? And that part is really cool. People like other different companies are thinking of this, and so are we. But that's just something that, like, the world is so open. Like, once you own these tokenized assets and you can have true ownership of them, what can you do? Right now, liquidity in real estate is a little tricky to get. Like, you can own real estate, but then how do you take cash out against it? I mean, you can do it. You can go get a second mortgage. You can get a HELOC. You can, there's so many things you can do, but it's slow and it's painful. If people can get easy, quick, like liquidity based on their tokenized assets as collateral, that can open it up the financial space to so many more people and then bring them into the DeFi space as a whole. I feel like it really is interconnected and is all going to be able to really work together for a really smooth new financial system.
I completely agree, Nicki. And it's actually why it clicked so much for me with what we're doing at Infineo with tokenizing cash value whole life insurance. And so, I mean, Dr. Murphy, if you could potentially, what sort of similarities do you see between the existing real world assets that are being tokenized in cash value whole life insurance and sort of how the benefits talked about with like assets like real estate are actually exemplified by tokenizing an asset like cash value whole life insurance?
Yeah, sure thing. So I think some of the major similarities between the two are just the fact that in general, these are assets that are expected to appreciate over time, particularly for people who are, leery of the stock market or other types of assets. They want to get into something that they think has a greater upside potential. But also, I think the fundamental thing here is, or two of them, is the liquidity aspect, right? That I know a lot of typical real estate investors, but part of why they like it so much is that you can have lots of properties under your belt and you can leverage them. You can go to a standard bank or other types of conventional lenders and just show them the quality of the collateral, and you can borrow against it to fund your operations. And the same thing with whole life insurance, like we've been talking about. And then the other thing too is that they are each particular element in this asset class is non-fungible, right? That it's not that real estate is real estate is real estate. Each parcel is its own thing, and so you have to kind of be aware of that. And it's not all just going into one big bucket. And the same thing with individual life insurance policies. And so I think that is something that distinguishes it, as opposed to shares of a stock from a given corporation are all interchangeable, whereas even real estate in the same city is not all interchangeable. So there's little nuances like that. So I think studying the tokenization problem and benefits and promises for real estate and life insurance actually there's a lot of overlap.
I completely agree. And that's why it clicked so much for me, at least. Alec, Noah, or Zuhar, do you have anything to add there?
Well, I actually wanted to turn it around on you, Jackson. I wanted to know, how did you figure out about this? I know it's a really funny story, but I'd love if you could talk a little bit about yourself and how you how you really got into the space, and also about your first email if you're willing to embarrass yourself a little bit.
Of course, I'm always willing to embarrass myself. I was young and excited about the industry. I had heard blockchain being one of the most innovative things that is out there for a while. It never really clicked for me until I started getting involved with Web3, specifically with cryptocurrency. And this happened to be the same summer that I was working with a venture firm. And so if anyone is familiar with the Graph protocol, I was working very hands-on keyboard with a bunch of developers on the early curation rollout, them sunsetting their hosted network. And at the same time was tasked with giving an investment thesis. And they stressed, give it on something that you're experienced in and passionate about. And I was very passionate about blockchain at that time, and I knew it as cryptocurrency. But I was only experienced in really real estate. I was still in college, and I'd had a couple internships in the real estate industry, and I felt it was the one thing I was kind of experienced in. So I gave my investment thesis on the tokenization of commercial real estate back in 2021. And ever since then, it's kind of been just a rabbit hole. I would not have been able to create that thesis without the help of Security Token Market. We actually have Jason Barraza, their COO, in the audience here. Thank you for joining in. But their data and reports are industry leading, top of the line. I highly suggest checking them out. And so I actually came on as their head of community management for a while, and I really dove in headfirst into the security token industry. And where Infineo was actually our advisory's client for a while, and that's how I got introduced to Infineo. And so it's been kind of just a journey down this deep rabbit hole into the the security token industry. And so it really clicked for me initially because of my experience in real estate. I loved what I was doing at the venture firm and saw the applications there for equity to be tokenized, even though that isn't necessarily that novel. But the ability for the democratization of access to the equity is really novel. And so that was really what clicked for me. And that is still what clicks for me here at Infineo. We're going to be bringing access to cash value whole life insurance to a completely new market that right now is either medically restricted, geographically restricted, or financially restricted. We're going to be lowering the barrier to entry for everyone. And that's what really excites me about this industry. So was that what you're looking for, Alec? And I guess with the email, my first email, I didn't know how to do line spacing. And so I sent every single person at Security Token Market a probably 5-paragraph email with no line spacing. And somehow they took a chance on me and responded. And so I wouldn't be here today without them. So really thankful for that team.
And I can promise you all that Jackson's a lot more polished today than when he started.
100%. Only because of you, Alex. Not only because of you, but you've definitely helped. Does a lot of proofreading for me. And so with that, I think that we can move into our last topic here. Nicki, we, as I've said a bunch of times here, we're really excited about what Relio is building and has already built. And we've been following you guys for a while and are going to be continuing to. Are there any upcoming projects or network developments that you can share with us here today, or just anything you want to say about the future of Relio as you guys continue to tackle the tokenization space?
Yeah, so we have a few cool things on our roadmap for this year that are well underway at this point. So we do have a new mobile wallet app called Freehold that the beta should be released by the end of Q2. And this is the really point of this is to just give access to these assets on the Relio network and just crypto assets in general. And we're hoping to be able to bring that over to our web app. And then we're going to have the launch of the new web app with a little bit of an improved UI UX, which I'm really excited about. And then we also have our districts project, which is our metaverse project, where we're going to do kind of tokenized real estate in the metaverse. Some cool things are going on with that. And we're hoping to have that launched in Q3. So we have a really big year with a lot of big tech projects. So we're busy, but we're really excited.
I guess before we wrap things up here, Nicki, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the districts and metaverse integration and how it integrates with your existing Relio ecosystem. I had that in my notes to bring up, but kind of skipped over it earlier because you guys were having such a great conversation about tokenized real estate.
Yeah, so trying to think of how to put all of that. So it will be a good way for us to use our Relio network systems in an easy way and to kind of prove out the point. So it's going to go kind of like city by city where land is released, where people can buy it and have the secondary market for trading. So it's kind of an interesting idea, and then we're going to allow people to kind of build on top of it and make it more of like a platform where we can offer like the land purchasing and the trading, and then people can do what they want with it and kind of build off of our idea.
So is the idea to almost be like a derivatives market for these cities at the beginning? Like not actually tokenizing the real estate, but giving people a way to speculate on the price of real estate in that city?
It won't be really tied to the actual price of the real estate. And then we will have an ebook that's coming out to really dig into it a little bit more. I think that should be out this week is the last time I checked. So we can get a lot more into that, but it's definitely not tied. Like the district's property is in no way tied to the actual property. It is a digital twin of the property.
Sounds good. And I'm really excited to read that book and see the release of the Freehold Wallet app and all the other planned advancements that you guys have for the next quarters. And so with that, I think that we can begin to wrap this up. Nicki, it has been such a pleasure having you. This has been such an incredible space. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with regarding Relio, or just in general, anything that you want to say before we wrap it up here?
No, I'm just really glad that you invited me to come do this. This is so fun. I'm a huge nerd, so talking about these kinds of things is always more fun than it probably should be. But no, this is just a really cool space to be in, and it's fun to work in a space where I'm really passionate and I can see the value that I'm adding. And I hope everyone else can see that too, where this is not just happening for no reason and just because why not? This is actually a way where we can change the current financial system that just doesn't help a lot of people, and it's really blocked off and helps a few people who really benefit from the lack of transparency, and that's why it's cool, and I'm excited.
Us too. Our other panelists, Alec, Noah, Dr. Murphy, Zuhar, any last thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, you were
That was awesome speech.
Unreal to be honest with you, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Nicki. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
And with that, what you guys have listened to is our RWA Twitter space. We host these every other week. We host a Twitter space every week, however, same time, same place, but we alternate topics. As I've mentioned, we are tokenizing cash value whole life insurance here. And so we like to dedicate a specific space to understanding cash management with whole life insurance. And so if you want to learn more about what we mean when we say that, please join us next Tuesday. Dr. Murphy will be on with some of our senior agents, and we'll be walking through cash value whole life insurance and how to manage your cash flow with it. And if you're here specifically for the RWA tokenization stuff, we highly encourage you to come to our next RWA Twitter space. That's going to be with Concordia, that's doing on-chain insurance. We highly encourage anyone to show out, and we'll be promoting that on our Twitter soon. If you want to stay in touch with Infineo and up to date on all of our events and latest articles by Dr. Murphy, we highly encourage everyone to subscribe to our newsletter. We send out a once a week update with any live events and the newest articles, plus a special article of the week with some insights from our team. So we really, really thank you, Nicki, for being here. It's been phenomenal, and we hope to have you back sometime soon. And thank you to my panelists for being here per usual. And everyone else, have a great day. Thank you, listeners.